Good afternoon. Calling to order the MES HR board meeting. Did everybody have time to review the minutes?
Yes.
Anybody have any corrections or deletions to them?
I think there were two small changes that I just got recently. I think it was on 6 and 14. Are those the ones?
No,
That's the compensation guidelines. That's a separate document.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not the minutes.
They just came in recently.
Right, those were not in the minutes. Those are changes from the compensation administration guidelines that you'll be considering after the minutes.
Okay.
Do we need to have a vote or anything on the minutes?
If there are no changes to the minutes, then it can be deemed approved.
Okay. All right, they are approved.
Thank you.
I think I should be abstained since I wasn't there when those minutes were generated.
You can abstain, or you can be deemed to have voted or not objected to the minutes because of the fact that you're not attesting to the substance within the minutes. You're attesting to the fact that this is a document that the board committee has approved.
I'll take that.
Great.
I'm sorry, Dr. Johnson, could you tell us again how you want your participation to be recorded on that?
Oh, I thought you defined it when you were telling me what I could do.
Yes, you are allowed to do it. We just couldn't hear you because I know you said something.
No, I said I will go ahead and pass for it to be the how do I, you had some nice words there.
You're okay with them?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so at this time, I guess we'll start the compensation guidelines. I just had a couple of questions, but I think those may have been addressed in the addendum. Dr. Glass, did you have anything further to say on those?
Sure. I mean, I'm prepared to give a short presentation verbally, but I don't need to if there are no major questions. I just wanted to state that it is this is a compilation of the work that's been done over the last few years, where there have been tweaks to how MES approaches the entire process of making sure that we are balanced between compensating our staff appropriately based on their experience and training, and also being cognizant of the limitations based on the budgets of clients. And I also want to start by thanking Ms. Dolliner, who really took a lot of the ideas that were embodied in some of the materials from the last one and my thoughts and drafted this. And then it's also been reviewed throughout the leadership team and a couple of times by legal. So I just wanted to have the expression that this is a new guiding document for us. And it doesn't codify, but if I can piggyback on the term, we will use this from the negotiations in the hiring process to the conversations with staff that are disgruntled, and to our normal process annually, biannually, and really it ends up being twice a year between the performance-based compensation and when we do try to identify folks that are due a reclass of 5 to 10% because of equity, because of performance, to recognize them, to retain them. So I can go over, I highlighted sections to highlight that are changes in how we approach things. But the last overview thing that most of you have been involved in is our creation of actual ladders for our major classifications. So you've been involved, the 3 of you have been involved in those, but Dean Johnson, we've created 6 ladders in the appendix of this that really give us a block of time. I view it as a block of time to win over talented staff. You know, between 7 and 10 years of, if this talented person is going to continually train and be about progressive development of themselves by what we provide, then they get rewarded until they get to the, pun on my last name, glass ceiling of you might have to wait for someone to leave. But it does give us the time for someone to not just finish their licensure for operator, but then because they can see the promotions over the next 4 years or so, they hopefully stay and they are involved in the culture and they get used to how we reward, and then they become a lifer. Chair, that's all I wanted to say, unless there's particular questions, and I can go into more details if it's desired by the committee.
No, I just had maybe a couple clarifications. So, you know, it's a biannual survey. Who was selected to do that?
So we have just finished we haven't finished the procurement. It's in selection, but we put out a contract for a consulting firm, for a human resources compensation firm, to then submit an application, submit to our RFP. We had 3 responses this year. We did it 2 years ago, and then for the next 9 months, they'll go through that and they'll do a class and comp study based on selected. They're for every position, and they are for a smattering of state, county, private companies that do what we do in those classifications, so that we make sure that we are in tune with the market. If we're the last time we did this, we were not in tune with the market for a lot of positions, and we had to catch up. Since then, the state has been rewarding employees. So, you know, this assessment this year to hopefully bring to the board, hopefully we'll find out that we are in line in most positions. And there's not this, I think the cost was approximately $1.5 million when we did this a couple of years ago to catch up with some employees that were compressed. But it should not be the case, but we need to check the market. More private sector firms, you know, Fortune 100 companies, they do it constantly. They do it annually, having external consultants tell them how they're doing with compensation. So, you know, it's been a commitment that I made to the staff and briefing the board that we would do it biannually. It costs between 50 and 100 grand, I think, basically, to get this study done. But it really gives the management team confidence in our grades for different positions when staff say we're not being fair, that we have checked the market, and for what we know, we are as fair as we can be. So okay. That's the biannual portion. The HR chief will check annually. We'll check continuously, and there are capabilities in this document that allow the executive team, the managing directors, to really, if a client needs a position, if we've had a hard to fill position in a hard geographic area, it gives us flexibility for that new hire that we're trying to recruit. But generally, it also sets the tone that we're from minimum to midpoint for most new hires. That's our negotiating window. And that's how we gauge whether we're paying enough for that engineer or that mechanic or that electrician. And we adjust every 2 years to make sure that we're in tune with the market as much as possible.
One last question. The operator in training classification, I didn't see in the document.
It's in the operator in training?
Yeah, the operations one is, but the operator in training.
Oh, I don't know. Well, the operator in training, the salary changed when we did this. but we didn't change that program. But we'll correct that. We'll add the OIT to the wastewater operator career ladder, just to be clear, that OIT 1, 2, and 3 are the precursor to this program. And we'll make that correction. This is all draft, obviously.
Yeah, no, that was the only other thing I noticed.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions that are probably general in a comparison to me here and another place. You talked about the salary statute. You mentioned it a couple of times, but you never tell anybody how you're going to use that or how that's embraced in what you've done. I didn't know what, if salary structure seemed to be important piece that's being used.
So we have 13 grades for salaries that start from entry level all the way through. We have some other special categories for interns, but we generally, all of our job descriptions, so the document describes, we have a bank of job descriptions, and all of those job descriptions are in those grades. And so when someone is hired, we don't have steps. We just have a min, a mid, and a max for that grade. And if we don't adjust, while there's a lot of conversation about those grades in the salary card, those grades and their min, mid, max are on the salary card. And you're capped if you're in a grade and there have been COLAs or even a performance-based compensation, the salaries are capped at the top of that grade. So a fix we made in the last few years is that if you get to the top of that grade, you're not getting anything if we give even a performance-based compensation. So the reason why we need to be in tune with adjusting the cards is because of that factor for long-serving staff, that we got to take into account CPI, consumer price index, and true inflation, and not let people have compression. But so we can show. We'll get you a copy of our grades, so that that's explained. And then there's also the OIT is a separate category. That's also one of our design salary categories. And then there's the executive program. But we'll get you a copy of the last class and comp study so you can see all of that and how it's.
Well, what I was getting to is I thought there was the salary structure meant something beyond somebody being a wage employee. That you're going to look at the person in multiple ways as a way of helping them to, be adjusted or not adjusted. So it's only saw it 2 places in there, and they were up front. There was not specifics as you're describing. So maybe I'll go back and read it again, but it didn't. To me, there was a meaning beyond somebody making $1, and that meaning also included other things that could be done with the person, but then you've described those. So I guess I go back and look at it, and I look for something nice out of that one, because it meant a lot to people.
So we do describe that salary is not the only benefit. And because we're focusing on training, and we do have a bonus structure, the Building Excellence Success Together program, that has 3 different categories, 2 that every employee is eligible for if they are awarded. And we have training and education and conferences and access to those. And we have a supervisor and manager training program. So we have a lot of programs that, as people are going through their development, through the management structure, people have access to. That's a part of the benefits package overall.
That's important because it says the board of directors has a responsibility of making sure that the salary of structure is not in place. That's why I brought it up. So if we have a responsibility, I'd like to know what that responsibility in general terms.
Sure. When we make changes to the card, as we present these programs to you, as you see the results of our Inspire Award program, which is when people go above and beyond, they're rewarded at the board meeting. And that is a compensation and a recognition. So we're doing these things for recognition. When we have an operator team, when we have a team for operators that are going to compete, you know, that is a cost to the agency, and that is something that we brought back as a recognition for the operators that are willing to enhance their skills and test their skills against the best operators in the region. So we have probably a long list of ways we do that. We have a targeting excellence card that's on the lower end, below Inspire, where the managing directors really manage that. So between $25 and $50 with a max of $100 a year. We give gift cards for people that do well for some projects. So there are many of them that are a part of that recognition side of MES.
I think if you would take a look at the last chapter on page 4, I think that shows that they have the talented workforce, attract and retain work and mottos, and it goes on, essentially, I think, indicating that we are taking a look at things more than just simply turning on faucets. Maybe that might be some help of it. You know, Doctor, I think it sort of says we're being a family.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the things that, you know, we strive at so many times. I know you have, and I have, and many others. I thought that was just one idea. If you don't think it's important, that's fine, but just...
That would be responsive to what I was looking for. And just so. All right.
So just as I said, I took a double click looking at everything today and the last day before and all, trying to see what I could find. But my wife said everything's perfect. So whatever she did, that's it. Go.
Thank you, Val.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mr. Botts, do you have your hand up? Or is that the mouse? Well, that's the mouse. That was the mouse. That was the mouse on you. Sorry, Mr. Botts.
No worries. Sorry I'm not on video. I hope everyone is well today.
Oh, no, everything's fine.
All right, I guess at this point, I'll take a motion to recommend this to the board.
So move. I move it. I think it's appropriate. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything that has been out of character at all. But maybe before you go, after what I just put on, you had some degree of that you wish to change. That's fine. But right at the moment, I think this can go to trial.
I mean, I guess I should ask for a motion and request adding the OIT.
It will be done. That will be done. We acknowledge that. That'll be done before the next meeting.
So with that, do I have a second?
I'll second.
There you go.
Thank you. All right. So I guess all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. So next on the agenda was the sexual harassment policy. And Sean, do you want to go over those?
Yes, so included with your package was a copy of the current policy on sexual harassment and a red line section that changes the time period for filing an internal complaint. So there was a statutory change adopted by the General Assembly this year that increased the time period for filing a sexual harassment, well, really a harassment claim of any type. It increased it to 2 years for state employees to file such a complaint with their agency. And so this change would adopt that, that time period for the MES sexual harassment policy. MES does not currently have a separate policy dealing with harassment in general, but the statutory change affected the human relations statute in the state government article, which defines harassment broadly to include sexual harassment. So that's why we're addressing that time period change in the MES sexual harassment policy. And at some point, the agency will have to consider whether to adopt a separate policy on harassment in general. But we wanted to make sure that the sexual harassment policy was consistent with the change in state law. And that change is not effective until October the 1st. So I would ask that when the committee and the board consider this change, that if they desire to approve it, it would not be effective until October 1st. So it will also dovetail with the statutory change. So that's the reason for this change.
Okay. All right. So I reviewed it as well. But it seemed like everything was done that needed to be done. I have no recommendation of any changes or any questions on that.
We changed the language in the policy so that it's exactly the same as the change that's in the statute.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
No.
We have a motion to take it to the full board
So move.
to be effective October 1st.
Dr. Johnson,
I'll do that.
All right, a second.
I'll second it.
All right. Okay, anything else for today's meeting?
We'll need to take a vote on that, Mr. Witt.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay.
That'll carry to the full board.
Thank you. That was all that was on the formal agenda.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else for the HR meeting?
They all want to have lunch, so we've got to get them going up there.
Yeah.